You know, I always tell people, if your hormones aren't balanced, more gym and more salads is not going to fix the issue because the order of operations is not correct. For someone who does have a science background, we could make it as complicated as we want it to be, or we could just go to the essentials. And it's like, what I'm interested in doing is I don't want to give you a biology class. That's not my goal. My goal is to give you like the fastest, most effective tools to fix your problem as fast as possible. And that's why it works.
Welcome back to Sheology by Dr. Robyn McKay. I'm your host, Robyn, and I'm so excited because I have my coach here with me today, my health coach, Chelsea McLeod. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy that you're here for many reasons, but I want to just start by saying, you guys, a year ago, I was in Europe on a shit show of a trip, which you can listen to on the earlier episodes of Sheology on Bewitched, Breaking the Spell After Spiritual Mentoring Goes Wrong. When I got back from that in October, I put on probably close to 20 pounds, like almost instantaneously. And I moved back from Kansas to Arizona. My husband and I have been, doing our thing this year, but I looked in the mirror one day when I got back and I'm like, who is this? What is happening with my body? Because at the farm, we don't have mirrors. Did you didn't know that about the farm?
I did not know that.
We have like mirrors like in the bathroom that you can see like from the waist up, but mirrors at the farm are just not like, they're not a thing. And we don't talk about diets and we don't talk about weight. We live our lives and have some freedom to do whatever we want. And that for me at the time involved a lot of cheese and a lot of wine and, just kind of getting regrounded in my body and in my space after what happened last year. So all this to say, I'd been like trying to do all the things that I've always done. I've always been an athlete. I've always worked out. It's not my first rodeo of gaining weight. When I was in at ASU as a professor, I would go to Starbucks and I'd have, you're going to kill me, Cafe Americano with 2 raw sugars and cream every single day and a chocolate croissant.
You know what? So did I. We live and we learn.
Yes, we do. And at night, I would go home and have a plate full of pasta with Parmesan cheese and a glass of red wine.
Honestly, that is everyone's story, including my own, because no one knows how to navigate a food system that's just there.
Yeah. And at the time, I was so much more invested in my brain and my intellect and my work than I was in taking care of myself really physically. And it wasn't like being physical, being fit at the university just wasn't a thing. It was like secondary to what are you producing? What are you teaching? It was all intellectual work. So that was 10, 12 years ago when I started working out and training and I got back into shape and did all the things. And then, stayed in shape for as long as I did. And then I had this thing come up last year, which was just a really transformative experience and put on all of this weight. On top of it, now I'm in menopause. And I'm like, what is happening to my body? Meanwhile, my friend Nicole Hess, who's been on the show, starts posting these pictures of her and she's lost all this weight. And I'm like, what is even happening here? And then she mentions your name. And I talked to her one day. I'm like, who is that again? And so she said, Chelsea McLeod. And that's when you and I connected. So thank you for being here.
It is so good to be here. I love connecting with clients who are doing the work and getting the result and also good people. Like,
I know. Your vibe attracts your tribe.
Exactly.
So I could talk about me all day, but I don't want to because I want to hear, because you relate a lot to, I think, my story because you work with women like me all the time and you are a woman like me. So do you want to dive in and just tell us a little bit about where you came from and your own experience with pasta and wine?
We've all been there with the pasta and the wine. And I always say it's not that we can't have those things. We just need to learn how to have them in the right energy and the right proportions, right? And so for me, I'm a corporate dropout. So I ran myself into the ground in corporate for 10 years after doing the crazy, go to college, get the degree, go straight into corporate America. What'd you get your
degree in, by the way?
So I was English and Chinese language, which is perfect for my career, which was in
linguist.
e-commerce.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was Spanish and then did Chinese as well. So I'm like quasi fluent in both.
That's amazing.
Do I use them? Absolutely not.
But it changes how your brain works.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I'm more of a humanities girl, but which was interesting because when I started learning learning how to be a hormone practitioner and how to run functional medicine lab tests. I've never considered myself a science person, but I was very interested in the science because I saw it as a key to unlock what I believe is one of the biggest issue for busy, strong, successful women these days. And this is how to treat yourself and how to, I always say if you're an elite woman, you need elite protocols because the women I work with are not average. They're not just average women who are, ladies of leisure with eating their grapes and being fat. It's like they have jobs, they have kids, they have sometimes two jobs. Sometimes it's a corporate woman with a side hustle on the side. They're also traveling a lot. They're also, they're doing a lot. They exercise. Exercise is not a problem for my clients. They might come to a point where they're not proud of how they're operating, but they're the kind of person who used to be an athlete. They're used to moving their body. And all of a sudden, when they find themselves in a body they don't recognize, they don't know the tools to get them there because, eating less and exercising more isn't really working. Or if it is working, it's way too slow or it's not sustainable. And so it's like what I saw as the solution is to really do the deeper level of healing because we've all been steeped in diet culture our entire lives.
I mean, my sister was on our other podcast, Two Shrinks on the Farm. She's a gynecologist. She was on with Barb and me, and we were talking about diet culture. And we both burst out laughing at the same time. Our mom was perpetually on a diet and she hid her diet pills in her underwear drawer. So we would sneak in there. No, we would sneak in there and say, "What's this? Can we have this?" Like it was a thing in our house. So, bless my mom's heart, but and I was raised in the 80s where we had a thigh gap. That was a thing. So anyway, so yeah, I think that when we're steeped in diet culture, that's the program we've been running since we're in utero, I think. Mm-hmm. And then for me, on top of that, as an athlete, and even in, my late 30s and 40s, when I started getting back really fit, I was still able to do the same thing to get fit again, which is work out, lift weights, eat less, and away I would go. Well, this time was not the same rodeo because my hormones were different. So can you speak to that a little bit more?
I always tell people if your hormones aren't balanced, more gym and more salads is not going to fix the issue because the order of operations is not correct. And so what women are missing is that key step in between what they would usually do that gets results. But they just don't know. And so for a lot of women, it's like, we have to bring them back into their bodies. We have to heal survival mode. We get to just bring their hormones back into balance, get their livers working a little bit better. Maybe we do some functional medicine lab testing. For someone like you responded so quickly to the protocols that you didn't even need to do that. Some women like those numbers. They like going a little bit deeper. But I always say, like, if your hormones aren't balanced, it's not going to work. And you have to do this piece first. And so like, for a lot of women who are listening, a couple of the symptoms that you may want to look for. And this is what's really important to know about this is even if your doctor says your labs are normal, these still apply. And so this could still indicate a hormonal imbalance, even though your hormones are, quote, normal. Because what we have to remember is doctors are searching for disease. And we know Robyn, who didn't really feel and look the way she wanted to after what I would consider like a significant life crisis. We know that's not a disease, right? Like we know it's not a life-threatening thing. You can go to the doctor, see what's going on, but for you, it was an imbalance. And so I always tell women what to look for are things like just sudden or unexplained waking. And like women always say, well, I'm just eating more and maybe my exercise isn't dialed in. But when you don't feel like the body you're in is yours and it's an unusual amount of weight and it's also not responding to normal things, that's where you know you have a problem.
Right.
Cravings, hair loss, changes in skin, big crashes in mood. I always tell women when your hormones are balanced, you shouldn't be having that 2 p.m. crash. Like when you really have the tools and protocols to keep your hormones in balance, that doesn't happen. You shouldn't be waking up every 2 hours, which I know you were having some issues with sleep as well.
3 a.m. was my wake up time. And that was one of the things that shifted really quickly for me is my sleep shifted. And the thing that you had me do is stop drinking coffee first thing in the morning. Mm. That was really special.
I bet it was hard at first.
It was a little bit, but I had been drinking tea previously and then I got back to drinking coffee. And so it was just like, it was something that I was willing to do just to shift when I was having my coffee during the day. And that's made a huge difference, I think, too. And then the magnesium at night was also a big thing. Now, here's something interesting from me is that I've done all that research and I know magnesium at night is a good thing. And it wasn't working for me for some reason. And I think that for me, I really needed an expert, AKA you, to come in and tell me the protocol. Because it's one thing to make up the protocol on your own. And listen, I'm a biology major. I hated learning hormones. Like it was so like weird and nebulous, like all the things, like I'm like, please, like, let me just get a C in this class and be done with it. So to really decode and understand what was going on with my hormones, with my blood glucose, I got a blood glucose monitor I wore for a month. It was great. It's fine, but it just showed me where my spikes were and things like that and taught me a lot about my body and how it was working. And sort of the inside of my body became less mysterious, I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think for someone who does have a science background, we could make it as complicated as we want it to be, or we could just go to the essentials. And it's like, what I'm interested in doing is I don't want to give you a biology class. That's not my goal. My goal is to give you like the fastest, most effective tools to fix your problem as fast as possible.
Right.
And that's why it works.
It was amazing because 3 months in, I'm 12 pounds down and like literally with very little exercise other than what I feel like doing. It's just been lovely. And I was telling you when we first got here that I don't always attend all your events and everything. All I have to do is tap into her energy and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like it just brings me back onto center. So that's just me. And, I think that I love that you have the resources for people to come in and learn from you and do all the trainings and everything. But like when we talked the first time, I said, this isn't my first rodeo in terms of this. So it's good to have you in my corner as it is.
It's so much fun for me because I think for me, it's just as important to feel connected to my client as it is them to feel connected to me. And so I don't work with everyone, right? Like, there's a lot of women who may come on a call with me and I ask them what's going on with them and what they've already tried and what's important to them about how they solve this problem. And if they want that fast fix, if they want to go do the GLP, if they want to go they don't want to do that deeper level of work, they're just not the right fit, right? And because I'm more interested in women who obviously we want to release the weight. We all care about how we look. Like that's how high performers operate. Like we care about how we look in photos. A lot of my clients are on camera like you, like they're out there making content. They care about how they look. For some women they've been through a divorce and they want to start dating again. So there's always a reason. But at the end of the day, these are women who are really interested in transformation. And I don't believe in shortcutting the transformation process with medication, quick fixes. That's not what this is about. It's about, we want the fast results. So we're not just going to sit around here and intuitively eat. We want the science. We want things to back it up with real protocols. But at the end of the day, it's women who really want that next level of transformation.
Let's talk about being in midlife and recognizing that, we're living in this culture where you can be healthy at any size, which I, by the way, disagree with because we know that obesity is a major cause of diabetes and other health-related conditions, which is associated with obesity. But I just feel like that for me, one of the things that I was hyper aware of when I was coming to you is that my whole life I got told, listen, when I was in high school, somebody called me a concentration camp reject. Isn't that horrible? I remember you, Steven. Steven. Anyway, I mean, that was like so I was always very thin. I didn't have an eating disorder. I was just lean and tall and growing into my body. I was as tall as I am now and weighed 105 pounds when I was in 7th grade. I mean, just like a little beanpole. So, but having that kind of projection on me throughout my life that if I did gain weight, most people would say, oh, you're fine, or oh, whatever. And it didn't, like even in this case in the last year, it just didn't feel like my weight. It didn't feel like my body. I didn't feel good in my body. And yet I still felt this sort of resistance to even saying that out loud because, compared to most women in their 50s, my body looks fine. And simultaneously, I had this thought of like, well, maybe it's just menopause and maybe I just have to accept looking like I do. Maybe this is just part of aging and maybe I just have to accept that I look this way. So can you talk about that a little bit from the mindset and what you're seeing with other clients who you're working with?
It's so interesting because I do want to acknowledge the changes in a woman's body over time, right? And there's times in my life where, you know, I was a hockey player, I was a boxer, so I did ballet, and so I did these sports where my body was scrutinized for its size. And so sometimes I have to separate those rules and those standards and those expectations from where I am now, because there are times where I look at photos of myself when I was 27, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so much skinnier. And then I'm like, oh, but I was doing a lot of drugs, and like I was working out 3 days or like 3 times a day, and that was not healthy for me. Like I might have been skinnier, but I wasn't healthy. And so I think for so many women, we kind of have to separate ourselves from other people and what they're experiencing as well, because so many women, especially in midlife, go around and say, well, all my friends are gaining weight. They're all not having sex with their husbands, and this is just normal. And what I want to say is, like, we have to kind of understand what's normal for us. And that's why it's so important for women to really return to themselves. And that's why the process that I take women through is not just science. It's also returning to self, because I do believe once you firm up that connection with higher self, when you really understand at a soul level what your body should feel like, what it should look like, it becomes a lot clearer and a lot easier. Because do women just gain weight during menopause? Not necessarily, but like, should we hold ourselves to the same standards we were when we were 18? Also, no. And so it's somewhere in between. And I think a lot of women are afraid to say, I just want to be skinny. Like, I just want to lose weight. And they feel like it's kind of vain, especially if they have children. And you know, I work with a lot of moms, obviously, as well, who have had a baby and then come to me and they're like, my body's not the same. I want to look better, whatever that is for them. And I'm like, okay, yes. Like, yes, and we need to honor what's going on here and the change. But you can lose the weight. I can't tell you how many women have done this work and they're lower than their wedding weight. They're lower than their pre-baby weight. They're lower than their, you know, as they were going through perimenopause weight. And so when we take a little bit of pressure off a number and just focus on feeling good in our body and finding a number that is, you know, I always say, if it's not sustainable, if you have to bust your ass to look or feel a certain way, it's not your body. But it does require a certain amount of honoring yourself. And I don't really like using the word discipline, because that kind of indicates it's like a white knuckling, you know?
It's more like, to me, it's more like devotion.
Devotion. I love that.
Or a commitment, or just loving the body. And having acceptance about it. But also, I think that there's this thing about acceptance, meaning that I have to accept things how they are, and therefore nothing is going to change either. Correct. So there's that kind of that gap too that we have to close. I read some research recently that women in midlife have 3 major concerns. One is dressing for their body type. Duh. I mean, who doesn't want that? But the other 2 are, I think, way more psychological, which is the fear of irrelevance and the fear of invisibility. Mm. And so can you speak to that from your perspective in terms of the hormone work that you do with women, the weight loss, and how that kind of intersects with the culture who tells us, well, you can be healthy at any size. What you weigh doesn't matter. You want a bikini body, just put on a bikini.
I think the irrelevance piece I see with clients over 45. And as they age, there is a certain level of awareness of the body changing, fear of being irrelevant either to their partner or to men or to whoever that is, but also in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And so what I see with women, when we look at hormones almost as like energetic extensions of ourselves, we have estrogen, which is obviously a very feminine hormone. It's very juicy. It's what prepares us for our cycle. It's what we're developing more estrogen as we approach ovulation. We really just associate that with femininity. And then there's progesterone, which is kind of the mothering hormone. It's more soothing. It's kind of what we see in the back half of the cycle. And then testosterone is obviously a little bit more masculine, and it tends to peak when we're ovulating and when sex drive is the highest. And so when we kind of understand it from an energetic level as we approach menopause, you know, progesterone and estrogen start to drop. And that's where energy starts to change. And that's where, you know, mood might not be as stable. And that's where hot flashes start to come, because obviously estrogen is also a temperature regulator. And so what I see is these women who are going through these very deep core distressing emotions that may be causing things like their cortisol to rise. They just start to see these things drop. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that these emotions that women are going through are affecting them at a physical level. And when they don't have the protocols to really support the natural production of these hormones, it all goes kind of hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And these poor women are left with no resources, a doctor who tells them this is just normal. It's just normal to feel like you have razor blades inside you during sex. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's not an acceptable answer to be. It kind of just goes in this big cycle where all of a sudden these feelings just keep coming back.
Well, I mean, it occurs to me too, from a psychological perspective, that when the hormones are shifting and you're not necessarily aware of all the science behind it or what the data looks like, and then you have these feelings and these thoughts about who I am and what's going on with my body, and we make a lot of assumptions. And listen, my mom's generation is doing midlife way different. Gen X and millennials are doing midlife way differently than the generations before us, the Pepsi generation. I love them. But the idea that the hormones are influencing how we think and feel. And if we don't understand that, then the irrelevance and the fear of invisibility, I think that when we manage the hormones, it's not the only contributor, but I do think it's a piece of it, because when you're feeling your best, regardless of your age, you're going to be contributing and you're going to shine brightly in the world and do the work that we're here to do without that concomitant fear of I'm becoming irrelevant or nobody's going to want to hire me or whatever it is. I think we can shine brightly at any age, is my point.
100%.
When our hormones are balanced, when our nervous system is regulated, like there's so much going on inside, and the things that we did when we were 25 to lose weight or to feel good, to feel sexy, to feel whatever, are very different than what happens in midlife.
It's so different. We can't even compare it. But what I always say is the tools that women learn in this process are the one, because I have a lot of clients who are not going through perimenopause. They're maybe 35 to 45, but the same principles apply where we are preparing to treat ourselves to have a smooth menopausal transition.
I know. I wish I would have found you when I was 35, because really, I look back at pictures of me then, vibrant, bright, alive, all the things, confident. And if I had known and really understood how to prepare my body, mind, and spirit for this time in my life, things probably would have gone better. And maybe I would not have found myself in the place that I was last year. Who knows? Or maybe I would have, who knows? But the idea here is that I think the sooner that we start really understanding hormones as it relates to creativity and confidence and just being on purpose in our lives and creating the bodies that our spirits are at home in. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
That's so beautifully said, because that's what I want to coach women through. It's not about a diet plan or a workout plan. Like, there are coaches online where you can go get that macro plan, you can go get that ChatGPT lifting plan, but that's not really the point. The end of the day, it's honoring the body. It's treating yourself as a vessel so that you can be at your soul's highest evolvement during this life. And I see it every day. Like, women are really turning corners in as far as how they feel about themselves, how they treat themselves. And it's about just respect, like just learning what your body actually needs so you can respect it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've worked with Justin, my trainer, for a really long time. I've known him longer than I've known my husband. And I tell him, I think he's 43 now. I tell him, when I'm 80 and you're like 67, you're still going to be training me. And Chelsea, when I'm 80 and you're whatever you are, you're going to be around for me, because I think that the other important thing is when we get to this place in our lives, we do require a team. We're not meant to do this work on our own. We're not meant to be by ourselves. And it's really important to be shoulder to shoulder with people who really get the science and the spirit of what we're trying to do in the world. So
it's so true. And it's quite rare, which is why I don't know. I tend to attract a certain type of woman, but I love that because it's not your average health coaching program. And it's not, so spiritual woo-woo where we're just talking about intuitive eating, because how can you eat intuitively if you're in survival mode? Your hormones are a mess. You are in complete distress. You're having crazy cravings. You're also not sleeping. It's like we have to stabilize the vessel first, and then we can do the deeper levels of work.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the nervous system and how the hormones are regulated are such a vital piece. And I know being in survival mode and having that experience, it takes a toll. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing, you know, I give the Neo personality profile to everybody who comes into my work. And here's the thing about that is that there's one factor of personality, which is called neuroticism. And I hate that word because like nobody knows what it means. And it's always used kind of disparagingly, especially toward women. But what it actually means is how sensitive are you to stress and how well you emotionally regulate, basically. Mm-hmm. And so when I look at it has to do with the nervous system, right? It has to do with how well, if I'm anxious, depressed, if I'm quick to anger, if I have a big spike of impulsivity, meaning if I'm going to be doing a lot of self-soothing during times of stress, I'm going to be stress eating or drinking or over-sexing, over-gambling or whatever. And my point to this is that when we look at that neuroticism facet or factor of personality, and we look at the things that you're working with people on, we also have to look at, I think, the nervous system response to how well regulated is the nervous system. Because for me, when I'm stressed, I score a little bit higher than average on neuroticism. So when I'm stressed, I am going to self-soothe with food, mm-hmm. or with a glass of wine or with a bowl of pasta or whatever it is. So there's that piece of the puzzle, I think, that we have to pay attention to when we're doing this deeper work, is not just the hormones, but also the psyche as well, because they do go hand in hand.
100%. I think, especially for women who are very type A, and like I do have clients who tend a little bit higher on the neuroticism scale, because that's also why they're so successful. And so for a lot of these women, food is one of the most grounding solutions to their problem.
For sure. I used to be able to travel, go over the place, and I was so well regulated. By the time I would get home, I would my suitcase would blow up. And I said to Barb, why is this? She says, you've been regulating for 6 weeks. You're home. Now you don't have to regulate, right? Yeah. So we have to pay attention to that as well. Chelsea, where can people find you, please, online, and how can they get in contact with you about working with you?
So you can find me on Instagram.
She's so cute on Instagram, you guys.
Drop me a follow there. I have a free ebook there for busy driven women who want to release weight without doing crazy fad diets, any crazy cardio. And that's really the starter protocol to get women started releasing the first 5 pounds. I am also on TikTok at Healthy with Chels, and you can find my podcast at Apple or Spotify. It's Not You, It's Your Hormones is the name of the pod.
So good. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see everybody next time.